Hello, I'm the Game Professor, and welcome to this addendum to my Legend of Dragoon analysis, where I'll discuss some of the more interesting ideas and conversations that came up in the comments after the video released. Don't worry, the talking over gameplay is a temporary format. It's just an easy way to make this while I work on bringing the show back properly. Of course, I will be talking about the game in detail, just like I did in the analysis, so spoilers abound. If you haven't played the game and want to, do that, or at the very least, watch the actual analysis first. Dragoon was an interesting one. It has a small but very dedicated fan base, and most of the feedback I got was just a lot of happiness to see a long-form video essay on it. But there was some contention and some interesting discussion of the game's deist themes, so let's dig in. The feedback was mostly positive, but the most common complaint... well, I left out a character that a lot of people really thought should have been discussed, and so I'm gonna discuss him now. A lot of people wished I talked about Lloyd. Lloyd is a minor antagonist in Dragoon, but he was framed at first like he was going to be the big bad. He's the one who kills Lambert at the end of Disc 1. He's also a Wingly, and since his major role in the story is all before we actually go to the Wingly village, that also comes across as kind of a big bad sort of thing. Basically, until we find out about Melbu Frama, Lloyd seems like the ultimate bad guy. But when he finds out that Melbu Frama's plan is to enact the Creator's plan to destroy the world with the 108th species, he's upset because he thought the plan was just to make the world a better place, as opposed to destroying it and remaking it into a better place. So he defects, and is immediately killed. He shows up right at the end, having not died apparently, to sacrifice his life in a blow that weakens Melbu Frama enough to let our heroes finish the job. So yeah, I didn't really mention him much in the analysis, and the reason is because... he's just not that interesting. I honestly have no idea why he's as popular as he is, and I was rather blindsided by everyone wanting me to talk about him. His broad character arc could be interesting with the right details, but I just don't see him there. If he had some kind of change in perspective that led him to abandoning his evil doing, that could be interesting if it was done well, but that's not what happened. He thought the plan was to make the world a better place, but he was lied to, and when he found out about that, he immediately turned on the one who lied to him. He didn't really have any character growth, he was just deceived into doing a bad thing, and when he found out, he immediately stopped doing it. And then he wasn't even around for the rest of the game to make for any sort of interesting character revelations or anything. The most interesting explanation I was given was that he has some interesting parallels to Dart, and sure, I can kinda see it, but it doesn't seem that strong, and the fact that he disappears for the latter half kind of weakens the impact of that observation. Lloyd just didn't interest me enough to talk about, and I didn't think that he related to what the story was going for enough to really mention him much, so I didn't. Sorry, I just don't really know what you all see in the guy. Now, when I said in the video that I couldn't think of any other games with a deist outlook, it was quickly pointed out that I missed a glaring example: The Legend of Zelda. The Zelda series also has a mythos that involves the creation and subsequent abandonment of the world, with a few gifts left behind for those who inhabit it. None of the games, to my knowledge, have delved nearly as deeply into this element of the theology as Dragoon did, but it is an example that's so huge I have no idea how I missed it. Even so, Zelda has only ever really produced that information as backstory that bears generally very little relevance to the actual progression of the story. So Dragoon is still rather unique in how it approaches the subject. The fact that it actually deals with the implications of that origin and the nature of a universal plan that's followed without the consent of the lives it affects and without the presence of the people who made it to even benefit from that plan makes it a rather unique take on a deist worldview, at least within video games. Now, this is actually about the gameplay aside more than the analysis, but a lot of people pointed out after my gameplay video that defending heals a whole lot of health, and that's why the game has so few healing abilities. And I admit, I didn't notice that. Not at all. In most turn-based games, defending is basically just something you do if you know a big attack is coming and you want to take less damage. If it does restore health, it's usually not much. The game never told me otherwise, so I only used it like I have in all these other sorts of games, which means I could probably count the times I used that command throughout the entire game on one hand, and I just never noticed how much health it restored. So theoretically, that would have made things more interesting by allowing you to essentially give up a turn in order to heal a character, but instead I was just constantly using items. So yeah, that one's kind of my bad, though I do hold that the game should maybe have explained that better. You gotta do that when you're defying genre conventions. There was surprisingly little controversy over my mention of the game's themes of racism, which is nice. You guys consistently make me proud to have attracted such a fan base, but there were some disagreements as to what the game really means and why it means it, which is awesome. Ultimately, I do try and create a somewhat comprehensive analysis with these videos, but they're still analyses informed by my worldview, my experience with the game, my areas of interest and education, my social privilege, my analytical thought process. It's all an exploration of art through an expression of who I am, because that's how this stuff works. And I appreciate the insight and discussion that comes from other places and other people with other experiences. So Dragoon was an interesting one indeed, and I'm glad to have helped so many of you see a game you love get the attention it deserves. Of course, keep on commenting if you have more to say, and make sure to follow Games as Lit 101 on Facebook and Twitter if you enjoy the series. So we're really close to that Alan Wake analysis, and if all goes well, Games as Lit 101 will be back on a weekly schedule after that. So keep watching this space, and if you'd like to see that regularity become the standard, please consider clicking that Patreon link in the description and helping this show keep on going. I'll see you again soon.